I'll give the quick summary of last week class. I have asked you to create one Databricks resource inside the Azure. You can go to anywhere you can search Databricks, and when creating the Databricks, it's going to be very simple. Not too many options are coming in creating the Databricks workspace. You know what is subscription and resource group. And the workspace name you need to give. I usually start with the standard naming conventions. For ADF, we have used ADF. This one is called ADB, and I have given my signature, and you can say dev. You can include 01 if it's not giving the exact name. And here I asked you to choose the premium one, not the standard one. Or premium trial also will work, but after 14 days we need to migrate into premium. The premium workspace itself won't charge any money. It's just a workspace like Data Factory Studio. So you don't need to worry about it. Nothing else you need to change it. Just check it out and create it. I already created it. So that is the one task I asked you to do on last week, but we had some issues on configuring the code. So we will see that one this week. So after creating your Databricks, this is called Databricks workspace. In the Data Factory, we have called Data Factory Studio. Here it's a Databricks workspace. If you click the Databricks workspace, it's similar to most of the interfaces similar to ADF as well. You need to launch workspace like we have launched the Data Factory Studio. So it will come to here. Sometimes it will ask you to log in again while opening the Databricks. Just log in on the Databricks. And we also explored the Databricks is the programming language based data processing tool. Okay, so here we need to write the code. So when we are writing the code, to execute the code, we need the compute processing engine. We call that as a Spark cluster, and we have seen the fundamentals of the Spark cluster last week. So you need to come to the compute in the Databricks workspace, and you need to create the Spark cluster here. There are different type of the Spark clusters are here. Go with all purpose compute cluster now and create compute. It will ask how many worker nodes and how many driver nodes you need it. For our experiment, we don't need this cluster. We can go with the single node one to reduce the cost of it. But this worker node is the one we have seen the Hadoop name node and data node component. This is the data node equivalent one in the Apache Spark, and it can start from 2 to 8. And the driver is the main node which take the requests from the code and distribute the code to the worker nodes. But for simplicity, we will go with the single node. You create the one of the cluster. Again, when choosing the Databricks runtime version, choose anything after 13.3 because all of the latest features are available. Some of them are very above 13 as well. Actually 14 and 15 series are there. I would like to go with one thing less than the latest version because latest version will give some of the problems on the code that we develop. 13.3 LTS will work fine actually. And this use photon acceleration, I will explain you a little later when we are running the SQL code. It will enhance and improve the performance of the SQL we are running against the Databricks cluster. Terminate after set this into 10 minutes. Even we are not using the code for 10 minutes, it automatically shut down, and the charge will be there only for the 10 minutes. As soon as you click this single node cluster, it includes some configurations. Again, we will see that little later. Actually, this is all going internal depth of the cluster configuration. So I created one small node cluster with the single node one. So I'm going to start that one to use in the coding that we are going to use it. So this interface has got so many options. We will go with we have explored some of these options, but I will remind you what it relates to. So this is the programming based data processing tool. So you need to develop the code. So to develop the code, you need to have the interface. That is the first interface, workspace. Here we can able to create your code, and you can manage your code, and you can able to create your folders and organizing your code inside the folders. Everything is possible here. Okay, there will be 2 instances of your account will be configured here. You can use any one of that to use the code. I think this is something related to the external one. Probably use the first one to develop the code. Probably we will create the new folder here first, like we did it in the ADF. We call it as working labs, so that we can able to start fresh. Comparing to last week, I do not want to mess it up with anything in the last week. Good. So the workspace is the one which will give by default create a folder for each of the user connected to the Databricks. Inside the user you can have subfolders as well. Inside this folder you can develop the code. This is at Databricks level, it will store the code. If you want to store the code in the common repository like GitHub or Git repo, you can use the repos. We will explore that one little later. We will try to simplify as much as possible to get into the Databricks and see what Databricks does it. So the next interface here is recent one. This is basically displaying the list of the code that we have recently used. There is not much significance here. Next one is catalog. Okay, the catalog is basically we are processing the data in these notebooks. Okay, so this data either available in the database or it can be available in the Datalake storage accounts. Okay, so only either it will be available in the file based storage or it will be available in the database. The database storage is by default, it will be displayed here. You can able to create the tables, you can able to query the tables, all of them we need to do it via code. This is not the storage place, it's actually a client interface to see the actual data that we are processing and loading it. So for database based tables that we are creating via code, here you can able to see the input and output of that one, and the external data is the one if your data is stored in some file based location. From here you can able to browse it, where is your data is caught it. For example, I have configured our existing Datalake storage account landing folder. Inside the landing folder we have got a couple of subfolders called labs, daily pricing and master data. Okay, this is not the physical storage, it's just connecting to the Datalake storage account and allowing us to just to view the data inside the Databricks itself. Because it's a huge data processing tool, we don't able to switch back between Datalake storage account to see what is the input data and what is the output data that we created it. So we are creating the code in the workspace. That code need to be run on daily basis. Most of you explored up to triggers in the data factory, so you know what is scheduling. It will run automatically on daily basis. That area is under the workflows interface. Here you can create the job and you can pass the parameters and run your notebooks that you have developed. And the compute is the one, the execution engine, we will be creating it. One good thing we need to note it here is that you need to calculate how many nodes are needed and what is the size of the memory in each of the node. This is all displayed here, and how many cores are there. For example, the simplest way of calculating the number of cores needed is you need to find it out the biggest size of the data that you are going to process. For example, in our case, probably we will be processing up to 500 MB data. Okay, that's all we have got. We have got 500 MB of the megabyte of the files. If we combine every data together, the one at one point in time, okay, if we combine all of our data, it may go up to I think 10 GB, but the huge file list that we have got can go up to 500 MB. So we have noted that the Spark uses the RAM memory, not the hard disk memory, RAM memory to process it. This memory, all we are talking about here is the RAM memory. There is no hard disk associated to it. The actual hard disk storage is the data storage is happening in the Datalake storage or the SQL database or anywhere we are storing the data. We are not the physical storage is not happening inside the Databricks. So when we are talking about this memory is related to the Spark worker node that uses as a RAM memory to process your data. Just now I said that 500 MB is the largest file that we have got. To process that in the memory, you need at least 2 times of the size of the memory. So 1 GB memory will be enough to process the 500 MB file. So you can decide the memory size and the number of nodes you needed based on the largest data that you got it. Probably I will mention this one again. We are discussing about the interview questions, because some of the interview questions they are asking, how will you decide your Databricks cluster? So we created our compute with single node. I think I have started it. Maybe I didn't start it. I will start this cluster. Now come to this workspace. Here we are going to develop the code. When I'm saying developing the code, it's not like designing the objects and the constructors or inheritor, nothing here. Okay, all we are doing here is we need to read the data from the source. For example, we have got our main source data in the daily pricing folder. The pricing data is stored under the daily pricing folder under the landing container. This is where we have got one of the data. The ingestion of this data is handled by Data Factory. Databricks can also able to ingest the data into the Datalake storage account. But general preference on Azure data engineering role is that any ingestion, if we can able to use it using the Data Factory, then please go with it. So when your project has got Data Factory and Databricks, most of the transformations they will do in the Databricks, but the ingestion of the data will be done by the Data Factory. Purely in some projects there is no Data Factory component at all there, only Databricks is there, then the ingestion can happen via Databricks. That also I can show you. Actually it's not too difficult to ingest using the Databricks, but most of the frequently used projects, the Data Factory is the tool to ingest the data. The Databricks is after ingestion we process the data using the Databricks. So now this Databricks, if you probably I will open one window. Okay, this Databricks is an independent resource inside the Azure. Our main data we have ingested in this ADLS Datalake Dev storage account. So this Databricks need to connect to this Datalake storage account. When we are discussing about the security part of the storage account, there are a number of ways that you can able to connect to this Datalake storage account. For example, you can able to use the access keys. If you have got this key, then you can able to connect to my Datalake storage account without having any of your username inside my Azure. You can able to connect to my Datalake storage account and you can able to read my data if you got the access keys. The another one is shared access signature. You can able to create the signature that is valid for specific point in time, and if I give that signature again, you can able to connect to the Datalake storage account. The another one is via service principal. We will see that little later. It need little more configuration. I would like to quickly connect to my Datalake storage account from my Databricks using these access keys. Okay, that is the quickest way to connect it. So I am going to use this access key to connect to it, and I'm just copying this access key. I'm coming here. So in Databricks, the code that you develop is called notebook. Okay, when you finish your development, you release your code in the form of notebook. Notebook is basically a interface to develop the code. Like pipeline, notebook is the development component in the Databricks. If you click any folder you are in, if you right click that one and create the notebook, it will create this interface. Inside the notebook we have got this is a cell. Okay, and you can have one or more than one cells. The code in this cell will be executed first, then the code in this cell will be executed next. It won't run in parallel. It will run from top to bottom. To execute the code, we have got couple of options. Even you want to run all of the cells, you also got them. Couple of options here. We will see one by one with the scenario. So here you can write the code using the 5 different languages. Probably 4 is the right one. The first one is comments section of the cell. Okay, if you want to write some comment about it, for example, if I saying that this is the markdown, configure ADLS storage account key, and control enter is the normally one way of executing a cell. When you need to edit the code, you need to double click it and you can able to edit the code. To see the output of that, you need to use the control enter. That is the one of the way to write the code. So here only comment section will be there, and each cell you can configure either any one of this option. If you have configured markdown, after that you want to write some Python code in the same place, you can't able to write it in the same cell. You need to write it in the next cell, because this complete cell, it uses the markdown language to execute the code. Next one, probably the next cell, by default this notebook is going to use the Python language, and you can able to change that one as well. So I'm going to give them a reasonable name, saying that 01 explore Databricks notebook. That's all we are going to do in the beginning. So you can able to change the name of the notebook. If you want to choose the default language for all of your cells, you can choose it here. It can be any one of these 4 programming languages. We are going to explore Python and SQL. Scala and R also can be used. So the first cell, we configure ADLS storage account key. The next cell, I am saying that storage account key equal to, I'm going to hard coding, because I have got the complete belief in you. I can more than happy to share my keys. So I'm just storing my key into the one of the variable. For this cell execution, it's going to use the Python. Again, they keep on improving the interface here. This button is not there previously. You can run this cell. You can run the selected text inside the cell. Even you can run all of the cells above and all of the cells below as well. Okay, I'm just clicking run cell. The normal way I use is control enter, but you can use many ways to execute the cell. Okay, all I did here is I have stored my key value into one of the Python variable. It's the string variable. Even if you click there, it's saying that it's a string variable. If you want to see the variable value, print storage account key, then it will print the actual value we have stored it. Now it will execute both the commands together. It's storing it. Okay, we didn't do much here. Just we are starting with declaring a variable and how to store the value to the variable. So now Databricks uses the Spark cluster. Okay, so the entry point for Spark cluster, okay, always starts with Spark. Okay, this is like in the Java we used to call main. If anybody use the Java, that is the entry point for that one. In the same way, to execute the code in the Apache Spark, you need to use the keyword, or that is the entry point for that one. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to set this Spark able to read the Datalake storage account. This is general configuration setting. Even I think, yeah, this is the default keyword for that one from the help file. Spark.config.set. Within the opening bracket, it is saying file system. FS is basically file system. This is the Azure file system, and it is using the account key. You need to give your storage account name, and the dfs.core.windows.net is the standard file system used by Azure for the Datalake storage account. So I'll copy all of them here. and we will just replace the storage account name with our storage account name. So this storage account name is basically the storage account name that we are using it in our project. Probably I come here, I will use this one. This is just a configuration, okay? There are not much code logic here, and comma, we need to pass the keys. Here they are using storing the data in one of the key vault and trying to get it. For the beginning, we will use the hard-coded method, and later we will use how to move this code into the key vault. Otherwise, it will take little longer time for you to get into the Databricks workspace features. Our main aim is learning the coding in the Databricks. Then we can do the configuration settings. Okay. Now I am running the code here. It just run through. Okay, because this type of the configuration settings we can't do much. Now it could be able to read the data from the Datalake storage account. Does anybody want to connect? No. Okay. Now we can able to browse the code from our Datalake storage account using the Spark, because this Spark configuration is set to read the data from this Datalake storage account. That's what it meant. From this Datalake storage account, from the containers, that you can able to read all of the data existing inside the Datalake storage account. This was the one we were struggling on last week. So we can able to connect it. I tested this one. It should work. Now, generally, it has got the interface as well, because I have shown a little earlier. But it would be better to having the control in the code itself. For example, I want to see the container name. It can't able to browse it. Container name, still you need to know what is the container name. For example, under the landing container, what all are the folders are there? We need to see it here. It has got the Databricks utilities commands. Okay, there are too many new terminologies that we are learning, but this is all needed for us. Okay, but if we know the first part of that one, I think the remaining part you can able to get the help from it. And DB utilities, okay, this is Linux based interface. It will browse this Datalake storage account specific container, and it will give the list of folders there to us actually. Okay, so you need to pass the folder name here. Now this is little trickier, not little trickier, it's little new to you. Okay, that's all I can say. This is using the different terminology to represent the file. It's called Azure Binary File Storage System, ABFSS. Okay, it's equivalent to HTTPS : the first part is the only thing you need to know. Landing is the container name, and after this you can give them the standard denotation here. Datalake storage account name .dfs.corewindows.net. If you give this one, it will start to display the list of folders in the landing container. It should be displaying now. Yeah, it's displaying it. Okay, so it is displaying that under the landing we have got the folder name daily pricing, we have got the folder name labs, we have got the folder name master data. So why I am specifically mentioning here is that there is a different notation used here to represent the container and represent the folder. For example, the folder names are coming after this Datalake storage account /, but the container name don't come here. Container name always starts here at. Okay, that is the way to read the data from Datalake storage account. Mainly we are going to read the data from Datalake storage account, or we are going to write the data from the Datalake storage account, and again displaying the information is giving in the same format. So you need to be a little familiar with this format. Probably we will try to list down the files under the daily pricing folder in the next cell. So this will get little familiar. dbutils.fs.ls, and you can pass the previous path coming. Now it will display all of the files under the daily pricing. I think we have got too many files, around 356 files are there. So it will display it. This is all for helping you to browse through the interface. That's all it's trying to do. We have not yet started the actual coding. You need to know how to connect to the storage account. If it's a database, it will be different configurations. Okay, this configuration settings will be different for the Spark cluster to connect to the database. For the storage account, this is the one of the method to connect it, and we hard coded the some of the keys inside the code. This is not advisable, but for you to get into the Databricks workspace quickly, I want to do it from the beginning like we did it in the data factory as well. So you connected to the data lake storage account. You want to see what all are the files are there. For that, you need to know the container name. Without knowing the container name, we won't be able to see the files inside the Databricks workspace. So they call it as Databricks utilities. Okay, they have developed it, and using that one you can able to see all the files existing in the data lake storage account. Again, it's displaying this one. The same information is available in the GUI as well, but I want you to know you need to know this one as well. If you go to the catalog browser, if you go to the external data, because this is file based storage, if you go to the locations, if you click the landing, this is all by default it's coming. Okay, if you browse it, if you go to the daily pricing, you can able to see this one as well. This is the GUI way to do it. This is the programming way to view the files. So probably we try to read the first file using the Spark. Now only one thing need to be in your mind is the data is stored either in the file format or the table format. Okay, there are two formats. Any system you take, okay, in the whole of the world, it will store either in the file system or the database tables. The new type of the data storage while retrieving is API. Okay, that is the one of the ingestion pattern that we explored in Data Factory as well. The API is basically you are sending a request to the software. Software return the data in the response format. The response format can be any format, but JSON is very preferable one because it is very easily can able to transport it in the network as well, and it can have any structure. There are so many advantages of the JSON probably. That's why they are using JSON for API request. So the data will be stored in file or database, or if you made a request to the software will respond the data in JSON format. Previously XML format was there, but nowadays almost all of the components, not only inside Azure, in AWS and Google as well, the JSON is the very better format available in all of the software systems. Okay, so these three formats only data can come. Okay, so you need to know how to read the data coming from the file. Probably we start with the file today. Then we will see how to read the data from the table and how to read the data from the API as well. We can see it. So how to read the data from the file, that's what we are going to see it, because we got the file in our Datalake storage account. As I said, the entry point for reading the data into the Spark cluster, you need to use the Spark. Spark is the keyword, you need to memorize it. Once you read the data inside the Spark, then whatever the variable names that you are giving it, it will allow you to subsequently process the data. But bringing the data into the Spark cluster, you need to use the keyword called Spark. Okay. So when I am talking about the coding that you are learning here, you need to find a way to read the data existing in the file format. The file format can be delimited file format can be JSON file format can be XML file or some other binary files as well, because we have seen the Parquet file format as well. Okay, so you need to read the data first. That is the very primary task before processing the data. Then you need to process the data. The processing can be decided depending on whether you are creating the reporting database inside the Databricks or you are creating the data lake where you are integrating multiple source data together for the further machine learning processing or reporting. So again the requirements will be same. depending on the type of the output that you are producing, you will apply the transformation. So you need to read the data first. In Data Factory, it automatically does it when you create the data set and link service. Here you need to create the code for that one. Okay, so we will try to read our first Spark CSV file. So as I said, the CSV file is not yet inside the Databricks workspace. So you need to say Spark dot. As soon as your cluster is start and running, it will start to give all of the options available for the Spark. So you know the operation that you are going to do, most likely you will get the keyword. It's not going to be too difficult to get the data, to get the idea about how to read the data and how to write the data and how to transform the data as well. It's going to be reasonably easy for you to do that one. Okay, so Spark dot, even I am referring in the another page actually, because I couldn't remember all of the keywords available for the programming. I will give the interface for this coding language, that is the API documentation page, that also I can able to give it. Everybody is referring it, but some of the keywords we need to know so that we could able to manage the interview. Okay, that is the very important. So Spark dot read dot CSV, and inside the CSV you need to give the, as soon as you type that one, it's giving, give the path for my CSV file. Okay, we don't try to read all of the CSV files. I want to read this CSV file first to see how it looks inside the Databricks, and also I can able to introduce some of the other terminologies that we are using in the Spark. So I'm saying that spark.read.csv, and I have given just the path for that CSV file. Okay, when you run it, nothing will happen. Okay, if there's no syntactically problem in the code, or this file, it can able to access it, it will run through fine. It's not displaying actual data in this file. It is saying the new component called Dataframe. Okay, it is exactly same as data set. Okay, it is the representation of the specific file in the Spark. We call it as the data frame. Okay, so Spark need to understand that some data set it's reading it, that is in the CSV file format. We have given it. Subsequently, if you need to do any processing inside the Spark need to have some reference for this CSV file. So Spark is using the data frame, and it's clearly saying that inside the data frame, first column it's giving underscore C0, next column underscore C1, underscore C2, C3, C4. It is identified 11 columns inside this file, and it's giving it. Now what Spark do not know is that the first column in this file is header. Okay, you need to use that first column as a column name here instead of the C0. So we need to mention it. This is the interesting part in the coding part. Okay, we need to mention everything. So before giving the CSV path, I'm just going to remove it, because some of the keywords will come before that, some of them will come after that. You need to know that one. That will come only in the practice. Okay, option is the one we are instructing the code saying that header is true. That means it will consider first row as a column names, the remaining row as a data values. So now if you put your CSV, okay, now if I try to run the same code here, it will try to bring the actual column names that we are already familiar with it. Hopefully it will bring it. I didn't test this far. I would like to run in front of you. Okay, so you know, and now it's reading our data with the proper column names. So your learning is what operation you are going to do, and inside that operation what all are the keywords are there that you can control properly in the way that you would like to view the data and read the data and write the data. So one of the option that we explored is header true, so that it's reading with properly actual column names. Now it read this, it has created the reference to this file, and it has created the data frame that for that one. Okay, you want to display this data inside this file, or subsequently you want to do some processing. You need to store the output of this option. Okay, output of this content is basically data frame. It internally referred. Subsequently, if you need to use it, again you need to write this command to read it from actual file. So you are going to store output of this data frame in one of the Python variable data frame. Then you can declare it. Okay, there is no harm in it. You are saying that source df, there is source data frame. I'm saying that source df equal to read the content from this file and store it in the variable called source df, so that if you need to refer this source file subsequently in the code, you don't need to write this command again and again. You can say that source df. If you, for example, you need to select only the column from the source df data pricing, you can able to select it subsequently. You don't need to write this code again and again. Basically, you are running the Spark code and storing output of that Spark code in the Python variable, so that you can able to choose this Python variable subsequently in the code to process all of these columns. Okay, it has got the, you can say that pointer or link or reference, whatever the way you can able to do it, you can able to do it. Now it is storing the data frame in the source df variable. Previously, if you noticed that one, it has generally given output of this Spark read command as data frame. Okay, just generally given it. But if I give source df equal to, it will give that reference to the data frame as source df. If you see that one, inside the source df, I have got them. These many columns are here. Now I want to display the contents of this file. I don't need to do this again and again, because the output of this is existing here. If I need to print the values in this file, you can just call that print of should be fine. Yeah, the print is the Python keyword. Here we need to, okay, now it's just the very interesting part. Okay, again it's displaying the same value that it got displayed it here, because in the Apache Spark there is a concept called lazy conversion. Okay, lazy conversion, this is the new terminology. Okay, until you are doing some operation on this file, this data frame don't get physically executed on the actual data. It will still trying to give the structure of this data frame only. Okay, so normally if you print the data frame, the print is the Python keyword, so it try to just display the information in this one. It won't read the actual file, because print is not the Spark specific library. Okay, probably I thought of taking this one little later. Because of this print, it made to do that one. Instead of print, if you display is the Spark code. Okay, there are set of code here using the standard Python and set up the code using the Spark specific Python APIs. For example, assigning the value to the variable, this is the Python code. But this specific code, Spark specific Python code. Okay, this is not the general Python code. Again, this is specific to the Databricks one. Again, here also Spark specific code. To display the contents of the data frame, display is not the standard Python code, it's the Spark code. So display means it need to read the entire content and display them here. So now it will try to display the actual data to us. I don't need to explain the actual files that we are using it, the same file that we are using it. So all we have done so far is connecting to our Datalake storage account, and we have managed to read the data inside the Databricks notebook, and we have got the reference for this one. Now if you want to select only the specific columns from the source df and you want to display it, you can able to do that one. You want to add some data on top of this one, and you want to store the data into the Datalake storage account, that also we can able to do that one. Okay, so the display is only for viewing the actual data. Just now I have said that you can able to select specific columns from this file. So probably we can go in that aspect as well, because some of them we have explored in loading the dimension table. This is all exploring it. Okay, don't worry that we are doing the real-time coding. We are not yet starting the actual coding to load anything. For instance, one of the dimension table load, we need to select only the state name from the source file. Okay, that we did it in the data factory. So probably we try to implement how to select only the specific column name from this file. It's very simple actually. It's a standard language. For some time it will take to understand the keywords. That's all. You need to be familiar with it. So we know source df is the reference for all of the columns inside our source file. So I'm going to say that source df dot, mostly it will display select, and if you say the list of one column name or multiple column names, you can able to give it in the, for example, you want to select state name as well as the market underscore name, it will display. Okay, now I want to display these values here. Okay, yeah, just now I mentioned that when you execute the code, it will give only the structure of that one what's been selected. So to display the content of this value, this is where you need to start to get into the flow of developing the notebook. Every transformations you do, okay, you need to store that in the another variable. There is nothing wrong in creating multiple variables here. Okay, you don't need to execute every transformation in one function. Okay, even you writing the code with multiple transformations in multiple cells, the Databricks convert that code into the better execution plan. If you think that the same code is applied on the same source data frame, it will automatically combine the code together and it will try to execute it together. There is no big difference between writing the transformations in the multiple cells or single cell. Obviously, if writing in the single cell, the code maintenance will be easier, but do not worry about it. All I want to do is that you need to have the habit of each transformation you are doing it, you need to store it into the another Python variable. That will make your life easier, and also you get into the coding very quickly. Even after writing everything, you see that some of them can be combined together, then we can combine together as well. But while trying it in the first, trying to be simply started and getting familiar with it and understand the flow of it. For example, here we didn't use the Spark keyword. Okay, when we are reading the data from the first file, we use the Spark keyword. Why we are not using the Spark keyword here? Because we already converted our source file into the Spark data frame. So this source df is itself is a Spark data frame. So selecting the data from the Spark data frame, you will be using the different keyword here. Select state name and the market name. So now again, if you display the trans df, it will display only the state name and market name columns. Trans df is not defined. What spelling mistake I made? Okay, definitely it's working. Okay, display trans df. Maybe after putting that variable, I didn't run the code. Okay, it's starting to display the state name and market name. In fact, I do not want to market name for loading our state dimension table. We try to simulate that one. Okay, so I taken the select state name. Now I'm displaying only the state name values. After selecting the state name values, we have applied one function to identify the unique columns from these state name values. Probably you might remember it, distinct. Okay, now look at it, how quick in the Databricks, because of the programming language, we did aggregated transformation and group by it to get into this value. Okay, so now we have got this one. Now we need to generate the surrogate key for each of the column values. I'm just teaching you, okay? I do not want to intentionally do the reporting database design now. I'm trying to teach you all the options available in the Spark coding. I want you to get into this Spark coding little quickly, little easily. Then we will do the proper requirement, what we need to do and how to do it, okay? So the tranche df contain the distinct state name values. Now you need to generate the running number for each of the unique state name values. That is the operation that you need to do, okay? Doing that in Python probably will take little longer, okay? This is where the Databricks notebook is very powerful. You can quickly convert into the SQL based interface for this data frame very quickly, okay? And then you can start to rely on your SQL, and that will help you to make it very go fastly. Databricks itself is saying that, okay, Databricks itself is saying that until reading your source files, use the Python, okay? Until using the source data in that, so if source data not in the tabular format, use the Python. After that, trying to use the SQL as long as your data supports it. That's why they developed the separate component for the SQL. So they try to use us to write the code in SQL as much as possible. So far we are okay. We are all looking good. Now we need to generate the running number here. In SQL, if I can call a function called select row ID, it will generate the running number very quickly, okay? So, but now our data is in the Spark data frame. First of all, I need to convert this into the table, okay? Look at it, how easy in the Databricks to convert this into the table, okay? You first convert that into the virtual table. You can able to physically convert that into the physical table as well. That is, both options are possible. But first, there will be multi-step process, okay? So what I need to do is that the first option is I need to convert this into the temporary table here, okay? After this, I can't able to, for example, I am changing this into the SQL code. I can't able to write the code saying that select star from tranche df. It won't run because it is saying that it's not a table or view. It's not a table. We know that it's a data frame. But you can convert your data frame into a table using the Spark code. We are going to do that one. Probably I will include the code before this one so that we can keep this one window. Here, what I am going to do is that tranche df, okay, dot create or replace global temp view, okay. This is basically this is the syntax for converting your data frame into the table. It knows that inside this data frame there is only one column name, state name is there. It automatically converts this into the temp table first. If you create global temp view, not only in this notebook, in multiple notebooks this table will be accessible. If you create only as a temp view, it will be available inside only this notebook. But after creating to temp view, you can permanently write it into the another table that will be available permanently. So for the time being, we concentrate this one. I want to create temp view. I'm saying that inside the temp view, you need to give the table name in the string format. So I'm giving that daily underscore pricing. So now I converted my tranche data frame into the database table called daily pricing. Now this select star from will run without any problem. Make sure that if something is not running, you might have run the code, you might have typed the code, but you might not have executed the code. If you execute the code, then only it will be available in the next cell. Now if you look at it, if you run the code, it is displaying the data in the SQL format. So the one of the difference that you have noted probably will be %SQL, because the default language for this notebook is Python, okay. Inside this notebook, specific cells I need to run with different language, I either need to choose it here. If you choose it here, automatically %equal will start to display there. If you don't choose it, even you choose the %equal, it will allow us to run the SQL command. That means the Databricks final execution engine need to know the code coming from this cell need to be executed against Python or SQL or Scala or R. It uses this one to refer to the specific execution engine. So now I have got select star from daily pricing. I know that, okay. So instead of select star, I am putting the state underscore name. It will display the same values. Now what I need to do is that I'm going to call them one of the SQL function row number, okay, order by state underscore name. Forget about this syntax for the time being, okay. So what I am going to do is that I'm going to generate the state ID that we have generated in the data factory. So it's very simply generated, it isn't it? Actually, we come to this point in the data factory. It's okay, nothing wrong in it, okay. Every programming interface will have the different type of the features and the different type of the options. We will be using that one depending on the language they have given. Now I want to store this data physically in the table. That also you can able to do that one, okay. So in the catalog you have got the specific catalog. This is all the schemas. If you want to create your own schema here, okay, and you can able to store the output of that as a table permanently here. Probably I will show that one, then only you can able to do that one. So output of this select statement, you need to store it as a table. So I'm saying that create table dim underscore state as selecting this one. Now we can able to see this dim state table in the catalog browser. Now output of this thing is permanently stored. If you open the new notebook, this dim state is accessible in that notebook as well, okay. I will share this notebook as well. Probably at the end of the lesson, what I am thinking is I would like to set up the Databricks workspace for all of you and trying to connect to your Datalake storage account. Yeah, it is stored under the, sorry, I have opened multiple. This is my Databricks workspace name, if you noted that one. So under my Databricks workspace name, by default one database is created. Under the database, the default schema is there. Under the default schema, the dim state table is available. This table is available in any of the notebook I am storing it. For example, I can create the new notebook. That means we physically transformed the data and also we stored the data permanently, okay. So it will be available. I'll open the new notebook. I'm calling it as test reporting underscore tables. So if I come here, I want to run the SQL select star from dim underscore state. We didn't do anything in this notebook, okay. We are trying to use the data stored in the existing notebook that we previously created it. Okay, I think you want to write this output. Here we have here we wrote the output of the data as a table here. You want to write the output of this as a file into our Datalake storage account. That is also possible, okay. Your transformed data. For example, instead of writing the transformed data, the better thing we can write it is, okay. Now this dim state we stored as a table. The same dim state values you want to store it as a file as well. That is also possible, okay. So we derived dim state using this SQL. This is the main driver for us, isn't it? This is the one which is giving the actual output that we want to give, but this is in the table format. Okay, to write this into the file, you need to convert into the data frame. Clearly see it. We want to read the data from the file, then we need to do some transformations on that file. For that, we have converted that into the temporary table, then we have write the final output into the physical table. Now this is the SQL which will give the desired output for me. I want to write this in the file. I do not want to store the output of this select statement as a table. I want to store this as a file. That is also possible. So to store this as a file, there is another reverse way. Okay, we need to convert this into the data frame first. Okay, the output of the select statement as a data frame first. For example, if I say that spark.sql, okay, within the opening bracket, closing bracket, if I run this query, if you see the output of this one, it will convert into the data frame. Output of this select statement into the data frame. It's giving the error because Spark is the Python Spark interface code. It's not the SQL. SQL always need to start with the select or insert or update. Okay, so if you change this into Python, now it will say that it will create the new data frame which with the state name and a state ID. Okay, so as I said, anything you are creating it, you need to store that into the variable, Python variable. So I am converting my output of my select into the data frame first. Now I can write this data frame into my data lake storage account. Probably we go there, we create the landing, pricing data lake, ADF metadata. Probably I'll create the new container saying that data lake house. Okay, data lake house probably will make sense. Okay, so inside this data lake house, I'm going to write it the dim state output. So if you come back here, this is the better exercise. So now dim state file path equivalent to, we have used the some specific convention here. Okay, so Azure blob file storage system. We'll copy this one so that we can able to change it. Okay, I do not want to write it into the landing container. I have created the new container called the data lake house. So this naming conventions will come to you. That will be better actually. So inside the data lakehouse container, I'm going to write it into the folder called reporting. Okay, this is my destination file path, the dim state file path. So I have just storing this in the variable, so that is the very standard practice. So now my final output is in this data frame, write data frame. So dot write dot, you can choose your format CSV, and you are going to give this path. Previously we hard coded the path inside the spark.read.csv. Now I'm little trying better format. Okay, and the path I have hard coded it here. It's not the good practice. You need to store this in the variable and you need to pass that variable in the actual command. Okay, so this is going to write it in the CSV file format. Let me see, we execute it. In the new container that we created it need to create the folder reporting. Inside the reporting, it need to write the output in the CSV format. So the data lakehouse is the new container we created it. I just refresh it, it created the folder reporting, and because it's the Spark, okay, it is writing some additional files. This is for the internal tracking of that one. The actual data file will be in the format that you are expecting it. The CSV file format, and it is writing all of the values here. Okay, here I didn't give the header true, that's why if you note it down, it didn't given the column names here. So we will rewrite it with the header true. Okay, write dot option of header. We have used it, isn't it? I also kept forgetting. Okay, so nothing wrong in referring back it, but you need to know what option to use it. That's all. We can able to true dot. Okay, now it will give the error because it's saying that the file path is already existing. Okay, path already exists. Okay, so we can ask to it mostly it will give the options here as well. Okay, already exist, set mode as override to override the existing path. Either you can set the mode as override or append. Okay, you can extend on top of the files existing there or overwrite it. Okay, so probably this time we can use the mode override. Okay, so all of the options will come before the actual final write. Okay, you can have multiple option before passing into this one mode comma override. I think probably I am making a mistake. Probably we can able to see it. Okay, this is not the way to give the way. Okay, I think I will choose the mode. Is it coming? Yeah, mode of. These all are the things we need to learn. This is what we are going to learn. Okay, what option to choose and how to use that one. Okay, mode of override. I am missing one of the codes here, that's why it's giving the error. Mostly if any syntactical error, it won't compile, so it will give the small indication. So just to note it down, previous file write and path 1739. Probably if we execute this command, it will be in the new timings. It will overwrite the entire folder. It has completed it. If you come here, if you refresh it, it is writing it in the 1742. It has written it, and you will be seeing the header name as well. Okay, probably I stop there. Do not want to jump too much, actually, to feeding too much. I'll share this notebook. What all I want to do is maybe I will remove my storage account key. Okay, so that you know that you need to put your storage account key there, actually, to write it. The remaining all of the remaining part of the code, you need to, if you understood today, you know what components of this code need to be replaced to run it in your machine, because most of you guys got this file, so definitely it should be possible. Trying to be familiar up to that point. Next week we can able to see how to use these commands to do the actual requirement. Hope that's okay with you, because I really do not want to teach you too many things and you are not familiar with so many things. If you are familiar with these things, that's more than enough. Okay, all of the transformations that we did it in the data factory, we are going to replicate in the Databricks. I don't think anything go beyond that one in the Databricks. It's again reporting database design, and the data lake design is the main thing. Here all we need to learn is what type of the Spark library we need to use, and while using that library, what all are the type of the options are there. For example, the write mode overwrite, this is not applicable for reader at all. Okay, this is only for writer. So these all are the options we need to learn, but we learn along with it. Okay, I will try to introduce all of the frequently used options and libraries to you. I think that would be the better stopping point before going any further, but I am more than happy to answer any of your queries. The transformations that we are going to learn is, the process is going to be same for every notebook. We need to find a way to read the data. After reading the data, you need to select specific columns or include the new columns. We didn't see the including the new columns now. We are going to see that one in the next lesson. And while including the new columns, you can derive something. For example, from the date part, you will be deriving day and month or year part. Those all are the requirements we had. Okay, and then for ingesting the data using the Databricks, we will use the API mechanism only C, because that is the very recommended approach for using the Databricks. Luckily, we got two API data. One is the weather data and another one is demographic data. We try to ingest using the Databricks and store the final output in the table format. Now, one good thing is that it is not using SQL database at all. It is using only the Datalake storage account. If I go back to my Datalake storage account and the pricing for the SQL database, the SQL database is always 1/10 of the price of the Datalake storage account. So in that way, the clients are preferring the Databricks as well. In terms of storage size, the Databricks is more preferred one, because overall cost is very much less comparing to the SQL database. In my case, it's working differently. Okay, SQL database is free, but the data lake storage is costing 1.53. And the Databricks, for the type of the operation that we are going to do, it's not too much. Okay, if you need to migrate your code to new environment, it's taking too much of trouble. Then probably trying it out, the type of the components that I am asking you to try it out, it won't cost you more than $10. I can guarantee that one. Okay. So I can go back to, and if you are not using your cluster, have the habit of stopping that one as well, because it's not about only running the code. From the instance your cluster is started, you need to pay for that one. I am going to export this code into the source file format. Probably I will teach you how to import this code as well. I will be sending this in the WhatsApp group as well. So you can download this into your machine. Then in your workspace, okay, you come to your users and probably you might be creating this folder. Right click here and click the button import. It's saying that import from file, and browse it, and you go to your downloads folder and choose that file, and the code will be available for you. In my case, it will import with _1, because already I got the notebook there. Then you go to this notebook, Asya. It will be, there's not much comments here. The storage account key, you need to use your storage account key, and the remaining account names, I would like you to change it into your account name. Make sure that everything is running fine, and you can able to create the table in your default data factory, Databricks database. You can able to create up to that level. That gives the very good fundamentals for us to really explore the Databricks further.